Welcome to another GINA program. With us we have Minister within the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, the Honorable Annette Ferguson. Thank you for your time, Minister. On this particular session, the focus will be on your 1 year in office. Can you please tell us, how has that been?
Well, first to start with, or just before I get into my actual presentation, let me take this opportunity in welcoming you, Mr. Greenwich, to the Ministry of Public Infrastructure. My 1 year in office, how has it been? I would say an excellent one. You know, it was one that I started off learning the ins and outs of the Ministry of Public Infrastructure. And I know that even though we would have already accomplished 1 year, I am still learning. So far, good.
So good.
Yes.
Thanks, Minister. What were some of the challenges that you faced?
Well, we faced many challenges. And if I may say, prior to us coming into office, you know, we had an uncaring government that didn't focus much on the city. Because whenever it rained, you know, the areas, you know, the entire city was under a lot of water. Homes, other business places, government agencies, you name it, they were heavily affected. What we did as at the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, we were able to set up a task force. We put a task force in place to address the entire drainage situation here in Guyana, and more particularly Georgetown, to be specific. And I guess you would have seen that since we had tremendous rainfalls, the places that were being flooded, you know, those places are no longer experiencing major floods. I can name a few, you know, Alboystown, Regent Street, Border, Carmichael Street, the Office of the President. I can go on and on. You know, we had tremendous rainfall over the past 2 weeks or more, and these places did not suffer like in the past. So that is one challenge. The other challenge is that what I recognize here at the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, there is the absence of an inspectorate department or a unit that actually oversees government major contracts that passes through this ministry. So myself and Minister Patterson, we have begun working collectively to have this particular unit resuscitated. And when I say resuscitated, what do we expect? We will ensure that we have qualified and trained personnel in the areas of administration, in the area of engineering, accounting, and I can go on and on. So this particular department would have sole responsibility for ensuring that government contracts or projects are executed within a timely frame or a timely manner, and also to ensure that procedures and systems are complied with, and most importantly, to ensure that government gets value for money. The other challenge that we experienced here at the ministry was the whole execution of government projects, more so dealing with the hinterland road projects. What used to be happening in the past is that these roads were being done by the Ministry of Natural Resources through GGMC. So what we here at the ministry decided is that we want to bring all these infrastructural projects under one umbrella, one ministry. So you don't have Ministry of Public Infrastructure doing a few hinterland roads, then some will be taken care by GGMC. No, that system too has changed. So we're now having everything under the Ministry of Public Infrastructure.
Wow. It tells me that when you came to office, you came with a plan.
Obviously.
You came with a vision.
Mm-hmm.
To effect a level of transformation so that the varying agencies within this ministry can be able to achieve greater level of operational functional.
Exactly.
How has this transformed the aviation sector?
Well, before I answer your question, not only transformation, but the big picture here is about transparency and accountability. Because as I alluded to earlier, this ministry deal with billions of dollars, so we have to ensure that monies are well accounted for, right? Well, the aviation sector. We are working assiduously to address some of the deficiencies within the aviation sector. And that body has tremendous responsibility for regulations, safety, aviation security, and also provide air navigations, air transport management, and the day-to-day routine which deals with finance and administration. But when we took office in 2015, our level of compliance was just 44.6%. And what would have caused that? We discover a number of factors. One, we hadn't a strong legislation, so to speak. So as I currently speak, we have a draft legislation in place, and that is currently being revised. So we had stakeholders meeting just a week ago, whereby we were seeking to get the input from our aviation brothers and sisters, or the sector, so to speak. So when we present that legislation and see its full passage in the National Assembly, there is no one to say that, well, look, we were never consulted, amongst other things. The other area of concern as it relates to the Guyana Civil Aviation has to do with the technical and capacity, building capacity. What we recognize in this sector, in this agency rather, it has it's a technical area, so to speak, because they deal primarily with regulations, they deal primarily with air navigations, and amongst other things. And what was quite noticeable is that you have departments that were actually manned by an individual. So let's say a department requires a staff of 5. You only had one person manning the department. So tell me, how can we get work done? So what we were able to do is to have the advertisement put out there, and persons were invited to apply for the jobs, and the department is now fully manned. And the department that I'm referring to is security, because security in aviation is a big picture, right? So besides capacity building, we were able to get an approved sum of 87,000 Canadian dollars, and that money, this was through ICAO, that money will be used to build capacity, and it will be used to ensure that technical support is given to staff. So what we intend to do going forward is that we would have the persons with the requisite skills and experience. They will come in and give support. So I guess as the years go by, we would see an improved aviation body, the GCAA. We will move from 44.6%, and I'm looking at least for us to get to that 60% ICAO compliance, and this can only be realized once we get the necessary things done. Our legislation, the full staff complement, amongst other things. And speaking about GCAA, allow me to say further that when we took office, what we found is that this particular agency was operating from 2 different areas. You had an office in the Kingston area, and then one in the Camp Street area. So we were able to at least have the agency centralized, get a building, and we were able to bring everybody together. So by us doing this, it would create a better management system and operational system. So the Director General acting would have a better approach towards the day-to-day functioning of that department. And speaking about the day-to-day functioning of the department, we were able to successfully, as of January 15, 2016, had the induction of a new board. And I expect that that new board, coming with experts from the aviation industry, amongst other areas, at least they would bring some kind of a different culture, right? So that we can see aviation growing. So basically, that's it for the aviation. As I said, much is happening. You know, I was able to represent Guyana at a few international forums. The World Aviation Forum that was held in Canada last year, and at that forum Guyana would have signed on to many agreements. One such agreement is the United Arab Emirates, right? And just a couple days ago I had the opportunity of representing Guyana at the a high-level global meeting which seeks to address the whole market-based measure on CO2 emission. So a report will be furnished shortly coming out from that meeting, what Guyana intends to do. So basically, in a nutshell, that is it for the Guyana Civil Aviation Authority. And if you were to ask me a question going forward, what do you foresee for this agency? You know, big on my plate at this point in time, one is to ensure that our staff, they're properly trained. Training is essential to the development of civil aviation or aviation in Guyana. Two, I would want to see, you know, perhaps a training school established here in Guyana. So when the year comes, you don't just send one person or two individuals to be trained, but at least once you have a country or a training school within your jurisdiction, you would able to at least have many of your staff trained, so that, you know, we can come up to par with what ICAO requires of us.
I'm particularly overwhelmed with the fact that a high-level meeting was convened to deal with CO2 emissions. It says that they're not just dealing with the issue of climate change in a piecemeal, fashion, but rather even as it pertains to the aviation sector, they're looking at that, which is most welcoming, particularly for Guyana to be even signing on to such agreement. I know that it means it can take the country forward in that particular
Well, hopefully we will have, I wouldn't say with Guyana signing on, but I guess because, you know, the high-level meeting is a run-up to the General Assembly, which will take place sometime in September. So we as a nation, or as a state, we will have to decide whether we want to be a part of phase one, which deals with countries with 1%, or states that emits 1% of emission, right? And this phase one will cater for 2020. There's another phase, there is phase two, which takes care of states that usually emits 0.5% of emission. So those states, you would see, they would fall into the phase two category, which would come up in 2026. So there's also, I wouldn't say another category, but there's also a leverage was given for states who do not meet the two phases, but, you know, would want to voluntarily participate. They can so do.
Understood. Whilst we're on the aviation sector, what has been done to improve transportation to the inland regions?
Well, a lot, I wouldn't say a lot has been done. But, you know, as a government, we are working to improve our aerodromes. and I guess you would have read quite recently, some weeks ago, a team would have visited a few aerodromes. We conducted an assessment to determine the state of our aerodromes, because we want to develop a policy which would seek to address four broad areas, right? One will deal with maintenance. The other aspect will deal with administrative framework, and this will be done from the Ministry of Public Infrastructure standpoint. And the other one will deal with sustainability. How can we sustain these aerodromes? Because to put it in a nutshell, you know, the current state of our aerodromes, really, it's appalling. Because you have aerodromes, or airstrips rather, that the surface is of pure sand. I had the opportunity of landing at Titan on the airstrip, a sunny airstrip. I mean, that is risky. You have aerodromes or airstrips whereby there's no fencing at all. You have so with the absence of fencing, it is open to all and sundries, even including animals, and that is a dangerous thing, right? You have aerodromes that are not properly lit, or what should I say, not properly lit, should I say? But aerodromes that don't even have lights, because so what you find happening is that in many cases when medevacs are to be done, the residents, they now got to leave their homes and come out to these airstrips using flambeau. So I guess with the whole development of this policy, we would see some of these very concerns being addressed. So then government would have to take it from there.
That is the hinterland aerodrome development policy you're speaking about. Why such a policy?
The policy is needed. The policy is needed because what we find happening too is that in the absence of this policy, yes, you may have persons who are maintaining these aerodromes perhaps every quarter, but they're just doing the basic things. You're weeding the shoulders of the aerodromes, perhaps they're going to patch, if it's asphalted, they might just do a little patching, or if it's the burnt earth, you will just fill the different holes amongst other things. But with a policy is a document, a working document that one would use to guide you accordingly. So for us, we firmly believe that the policy is needed.
So in other words, this will help to guide the better development. So we would not be hearing of hinterland airstrips.
No.
Because the airstrips would be a thing of the past. I can imagine that the whole term or phraseology, airstrips, is synonymous with the state or the condition it's in.
It's not only maintaining the strips, but at least in a few areas, you can have like a little office set up. You can have like a little waiting room, to accommodate our passengers on a daily basis. So this is what this policy will seek to address. And as I'm speaking on the aerodromes policy, permit me to say that we have already started our consultation process. And we're getting persons to buy into the idea. Residents, the Tushas, the village leaders, their councils, they have bought into this idea. We would have already covered about seven aerodromes so far, whereby we had consultation, and we expect to cover another 8 because we're using 15 aerodromes as a pilot test, right? So that is where we at this point in time.
The facilities will be transformed, but that is hinterland airstrips or aerodromes. What is happening on the river?
The river, you're speaking to the Transport and Harbours Department. Well, many things are happening on the river. We inherited as a new government an agency that has a fleet of aging vessels. you know, but we still continue because we believe that as a government we provide, or the Transport and Highways Department provides a public service to its citizens, right? So despite the aging fleet of vessels, we continue to give great attention to them. You know, Lady Northcourt, in 2015 we were able to do massive rehab works on her, and she's close to about 80 something years. You know, we have Kimbia that is currently being docked and is expected out of dock sometime soon. These two vessels, they ply the Region 1 district, Port Kaituma and Berrima. So, and you know the time it will take for these vessels to get to its final destination, you know, probably close to 20 something hours on the water. But what the government is currently doing, we're trying to at least get a new fleet of vessel to provide a more efficient and effective service for those persons who are living in the Region 1 district. Outside of Lady Northcourt, Kimbia, we have the Sabanto. I think these are two new Chinese vessels. Yes, we continue to do maintenance work on these vessels. We have Makara, that is expected to be docked anytime soon in 2016. We have Berrima that is currently being docked, that is expected to be out of dock just before, I think, June month ends. So at least once we get these vessels back in operation, we can see more things happening on our rivers where Transport and Harbors Department is concerned. And permit me to say, Transport and Harbors Department, you know, it's an 85-year-old organization which continues to provide services to the Guyanese public, but it has its own challenges in terms of capacity building, in terms of finances, and I can go on and on. But as the minister with responsibility for transportation, my whole focus is to have transport restructured as we currently speak. You know, the manager, the general manager, there is no deputy within that agency. So the manager, the general manager, is currently responsible for admin matters, likewise operational matters on a daily basis. And I mean, she's overwhelmed. So what I would want to see is the hiring of a deputy to ease some of the burden that she is confronted with on a daily basis. So I know I have my plate full for Transport and Harbors Department, and indeed you will see massive restructuring being done in that particular agency. Allow me to touch a bit on, because it's not only vessels and matters, you know, Transport and Harbors Department, we have, you know, a lot of sellings, because this is where our boats are usually berthed, right? So what is happening is that last year we did rehab works on Perica, we did some work on Leg 1, we started some work on Baltica. You know, Baltica recently became a town. So we're looking to transform the whole landscape, because that's the first port of entry for Baltica. When you get to the stelling there, it's the Transport and Harbors Department. And I guess you would have visited, you recognize the whole admin building. It's in a deplorable state. So our intention as a government is to have that entire outlook, the superstructure and the substructures, you know, reformed, restructured, amongst other things.
On the topic of stellings, we heard of this massive transformation that the Stadbrook stelling will undergo. Specifically, it's going to be transformed into a waterfront facility.
Yes.
And we did hear of other projects that should be coming on stream that speaks of port development. What can you tell us about that?
For development, well, I know that in our budget, you know, for the 2016 budget, much focus is not on the Stadbrook, if I may say, but you know, we're trying to get some funding from the DFID fund, that's from the UK. So once those monies are approved, we will see massive transformation there at the Stabroek Wharf. It would take care of what we envisioned there. You would see like boardwalking. We would want to set up probably like perhaps booth, perhaps hangout bars, or so to speak. So we want to see a multiplicity of things happening there at our waterfront. And I guess with that coming on stream, that entire area will be transformed, and you would see more activities happening at our waterfronts.
That's right. So it's about taking advantage of the strategic location and the prime real estate we have.
Exactly.
To provide not just a service where boats can just come and berth and move, but we can have a grand place.
Exactly.
To actually come, sit down, and it can be used as a tourist destination
yes,
as well, or a tourist attraction as well.
Exactly, because I guess you would have visited Bitica and you would have recognized just not at the study, but further from the Transport and Harbors Department's telling, there's a kind of river view, some river view, and there you see, all kind of activities happening there. So it's, as you rightfully said, it's like a tourist site, so to speak, where people can go just enjoy the fresh salt water air, or whatever the case might be.
That's right.
So basically that's it. But apart from that, what we have for Transport and Harbors Department too is the goods wharf, because that area is in a deplorable state. So monies have been allocated in the 2016 budget to have corrective works done in that area. The other area we intend to address has to do with the workshop admin building. So we would see a new admin building because we want to make our workers comfortable, so we will be rehabilitating their workshop admin building in 2016. Outside of that, what is passionate for me is to see the resuscitation of the Mazaruni dockyard. That Mazaruni dockyard, it has its capacity, perhaps in terms of creating employment for young people. That's one. Two, also generating additional income for the Transport and Harbors Department, because as we currently speak, Transport and Harbors Department, if you want to dock the two Chinese vessels, it cannot be docked at the Mazaruni dockyard because the facility doesn't allow for that, or those kind of vessels to be docked there. But Lady Northcourt, Berrima, they can dock there. So once we get the dockyard, the Mazaruni dockyard, up and running, I know it wouldn't happen in 2016, but believe you me, I'm eyeing it for 2017, because as I said earlier, it's an area that can create employment for young people. They can go there, learn skills. Whenever a ship or a vessel is docked there, they know the know-hows and so forth. And the other thing I would really want to see too is the removing of those speedboats the side of the rivers. Once we get Mazaruni up and running, those boats will have to go there to undergo whatever maintenance work. So by doing that, it would minimize or eliminate, the whole pollution of our rivers. So
and I guess on that note, you're also talking about some of the bigger motor vessels that you would have seen that are just parked along the channel. That is a hazard waiting to happen.
Exactly.
Understood. Minister, I recall when we first spoke when you assumed office, you said that you're going to be taking the communities by storm where infrastructure is concerned.
Yes.
You're not just going to come in and patch a road, but you're going to be repaving. You're going to be bringing this level of infrastructural transformation to the community so that it can now yield for a more productive resident. What has become of that?
Well, Mr. Greenwich, I guess you would have seen the Ministry of Public Infrastructure. We would have conducted massive roadworks in our city here in Georgetown. We did works in Sophia, the whole ring road, and I must, score big here that Sophia was a neglected community under the previous administration. And we made a promise to the Guyanese residents living in Sophia that once you elect us, we would at least address your road problems. So we have started here since in 2015 and works continue. We had works done in West Rumfeld. That was also a neglected area. Galehouse Square, for example, years would have gone. Nothing was done. I recall while sitting on the opposition benches, I personally asked the question, when are we going to, the former minister Robeson Ben, when are we going to do some, rehabilitative works in West Rumfeld, more particularly the Galehouse Square area? That went, he didn't pay me any mind. But when we took office, we brought relief to the people. The people are happy. Look at the Thomas Land roads. We did recapping. Look at South Road. We did recapping. I can go on and on, and on. And as I said earlier, the time for patching a pothole is long gone. So what we're doing, we are now resurfacing, because with the resurfacing, you spend less and you don't have to go back 3 months down the line, 5 months down the line. You understand me? So the monies that you use to patch, the monies can be used towards resurfacing, and it's not only are we resurfacing these roads, but we're also ensuring that, lights are installed in the various communities, the various highways, amongst other things.
Understood. Some persons may say that perhaps attention is only being given to Region 4, Central Georgetown. Is that true?
That is not true. I just want to, dispel this idea or this notion, because the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, our responsibility here at the ministry is to ensure that every community, every region benefits. I alluded to earlier that we would have done work in Georgetown, but I forgot to mention that Linden in Region 10, they had works done. The other regions, what usually happens is that even though you have the regional administration that would handle road works, amongst other things, the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, in our budget, we have provision for warrants. And what usually happens is that we would send these warrants to the region. The region engineers, they will go into the various communities, inspect or do an assessment to determine which roads are to be done. And when they submit whatever documentations to the ministry, we will now send those money. Just recently, myself and Minister Patterson, we had an opportunity. We did a fan out in region number 2. I think it might have been in February or March month to be exact. What we did, we went from Supernam to Charity and we divided the work. So I had from Supernam up to, I can't recall, and then he took from the other, from Charity up to where I would have ended. And we went village by village, street by street, to ensure that what was actually provided to us, those works were actually done in 2015. What is to be done in 2016? And when we what we saw is that in some cases, areas identified to be done in 2016 need no particular attention because those roads are in good state. So what we would have done on site is to say, well, look, the monies to do X road, we can now have those very monies go to Y road that most needed it. You know, so that is what we have started to do, and we will continue to do it. So it is not a case whereby Georgetown is given all attention. No. The Ministry of Public Infrastructure, our sole responsibility is to all Guyana, all communities, all regions.
I think that is where you can be able to appreciate not just being in an office and making a decision, but rather being in the field.
Exactly.
Seeing what is happening.
Exactly, because, you know, Mr. Greenwich, I can safely say this, you know, without any fear. The work is not really in the office here, you know. The work is out there. Because in order for you, a manager, a politician, a CEO, whomever you are, in order for you to make an informed decision, you have to be on the ground. You know, and as a minister, I make it my duty at least once a month, in some cases twice a month, to visit communities, to get a first-hand approach as to what is needed against what is not needed.
I remember you visited the sub-district Berrima. Tell us about your visit.
Oh yes, you know, I went to Berrima to inspect, you know, infrastructural works to be done. And surprisingly, this particular road in Berrima, and I can recall under the previous administration, they said that the, you know, works were actually done to address this particular area. But I mean, being on the ground, I see things differently. And then you got the comments from the residents that billions, or in some cases millions, would have been spent, and look at the state of the road. So what I did, I took photos. I promised the residents that, well, look, when I get back to the office, I will have the problems addressed, because they could not have get from one end to the other end. I mean, I had the experience because I was on the ground. In order for me to get from the other end of the road, I had to use a makeshift bridge that was erected by the citizens or the residents. And what happened is that the road apparently had some, you know, sinking, and you had water settling there. You know, the water was actually eating away the stuff from off its surface. So what I did on my return to office, and I hold to my promise, and the residents, they can safely say that, is that I was able to negotiate with my senior minister. I said we need to address the plight of the residents here in Berrima, and we were able to have that fixed. We got the estimate through the region, and we had the monies sent as warrant to the region. So the people, they're happy now. So there's no need for them to pay a taxi fare or a bus fare, come off at the end of the road, then you gotta walk on this makeshift bridge, then you gotta take another taxi or minibus to take you to your destination. Those days are over. We were able to effectively address the plight of the residents there in region number 1.
On your way to region 2, you would have used the Demerara Harp Bridge. Arguably it has outlived its purpose, its intended use. Forward looking, 2016 and beyond, what are we doing with that?
Well, you know, even though there's a perception out there that the bridge has outlived its usefulness, I wouldn't want to agree or disagree, but it continues to give us service. Why? Because the government, we continue to ensure that maintenance, be it to our pontoons, be it to our hydraulic retractor area, we ensure that these areas are maintained if not on a monthly basis, if not on a 2 months basis, at least we maintain the bridge every quarter. And speaking about maintenance, just 2 months ago, or to be exact, it might be a month ago, we had 2 pontoons that were changed. You know, 2 brand new pontoons were actually installed, right? So we continue to, you know, keep the bridge going because, as I said, it serves as a gateway from the East Bank corridor to the West Coast and West Bank of Demerara. So what is happening is that, you know, after taking office, the previous administration, they had started this whole talk about constructing a new bridge. I mean, we wouldn't just throw that through the window. We will continue with that project. So we had expression of interest. We received, I think, 13 submissions. And out of the 13 submissions, I think only 2 submissions would have reached the required design, so to speak. So those submissions, I think from the 2 submissions, 1 is currently with MPTAB. So once that gets the green light, then we will see at least the study being conducted.
Are we looking at the fixed structure?
I haven't seen the design, so I wouldn't want to say it's a fixed structure or it would be a floating structure. So let us just give it some time.
No problem, Minister. What is in the pipeline for 2016?
There are many things in the pipeline for 2016 because, you know, the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, we in the 2016 budget, we have been allocated close to $30 billion. So that in a sense says that, well, look, this ministry has its hands full. So what are some of the projects we have? What we want to see, we will be having the construction of a sidewalk there at Corriverton. I think we have received expression of interest, and these are currently being evaluated. I spoke about the Demerara Harbour Bridge. Apart from the Demerara Harbour Bridge, we would be doing a few studies with the Wisma and the Linden bridges. You know, they're in region number 10. The other thing is that we would be conducting a feasibility and design consultancy services. This is for the upgrade of the East Coast Demerara Railway embankment and the Sheriff Street Mahaica. So we already had expressions of interest, and these evaluations should have been completed by the 1st of April 2016. So I trust that we should be getting the final report before the month ends. Outside of that, we would also be conducting a feasibility study and consultancy design. This will be for the rehabilitation of the Linden to Kokwani Aichuni roadway, right? So this evaluation should have been completed by the 1st of April 2016. We have also the feasibility and design consultancy services. This is for the rehabilitation of the Linden-Soesdijk Highway, right? And evaluation should have been completed the March the 18th, but I am yet to be apprised as to where we at with regards to this, right? Well, you know, works will be done on our river and sea defenses. So those works will be done. That is massive rehabilitative riprap works, right? And we will also continue to maintain our river and sea defenses. This will be done in 10 areas, so to speak, and not only in region 4 but in other areas, region 2 and region 6. Region 5, they don't have much sea defenses there, right? So these are our critical areas. And you know, the airstrips, we have a few airstrips, I think Annette, Paramakatoi, I think Kato, Ettering Bang, I think Ettering Bang, yeah, Kurupokari. You know, these airstrips are to be done in our or with our 2016 provision, so to speak. You know, maintenance of roads, rehabilitation of our roads and bridges, that will be on a continuous basis. So the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, you know, we have our hands filled.
So if I have to put it in context, it's not just about coming into an office and coming with your plan, but it's about ensuring that you get the most out of that particular office. So here it was about getting the most out of that, out of the ministry. So we're talking about having an inspectorate division that will ensure that government gets the value for money in all their infrastructure projects. We're also talking about the aviation sector complying with the ICAO standards. We're talking about, with that, the development of the hinterland airstrips into airdromes, providing a better facility for persons who use the services. Simultaneously, we're talking about the river transport services, the Spartacus Stelling, which has been in a seriously dilapidated state, the Leg 1 Stelling, the Pericus Stelling, bringing that all together. So we're looking at a holistic approach towards developing a transformation network.
Exactly.
And you know, it makes me eager to actually want to see what the finished product will be like.
Yes, and just to put it in a nutshell, hence the creation or the naming or the name change of public works to public infrastructure, because all that you would have said, you know, is in line with our infrastructure. I just want to take this opportunity, first of all, to say thank you for holding this brief interview with me. That's one. Two, you know, Guyana celebrates 50 years as an independent nation come May 26, 2016. So I just want to take the opportunity on behalf of myself and family to extend 50th anniversary greetings to our nation. And I just want us to remember, you know, we have a team that is that really represents our 50th celebration. You know, reflect. We got to reflect who we were. We have to celebrate who we are today, you know, because reflecting as to who we were, you know, we were once ruled under the British, and many of our agencies were ruled by the British, you know. Then we can now celebrate because we're now independent. We have our own national anthem, our national flag, our national songs, you know, our national assembly, you name it. These are things we ought to celebrate. The other thing, to inspire, you know, when we celebrate, we would be able to inspire others. So I trust that as we all celebrate our 50th, let us look at these three key terms that make up this team, and we can make the best of it. As I said before, happy 50th anniversary, Guyana, and may God richly bless us all, and may God richly bless our President, His Excellency David Arthur Granger. Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching. You were listening to the Honorable Minister within the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, Annette Ferguson, who gave her recount of her 1 year in office. Thank you for staying in tuned to another GINA program. Happy 50th.